They say the most devastating truths usually arrive in polite, cold, and sterilely whispers, not with a scream, not with a scene, but with a few calm words that completely unravel your entire world. I learned that lesson on a Tuesday at 3:17 p.m. in the quiet, beige hallway of the Genside Clinic in Palo Alto. My silk blouse clung to my back in a cold sweat, and the taste of the organic lime and celery juice I had forced myself to drink for lunch suddenly turned rancid in my throat. I had gone back for my forgotten Fendi bag and stood frozen outside the slightly ajar door of consultation room number 3, where my husband, Liam Sterling, the love of my life, the father of the twins growing inside me, was speaking with our genetic counselor. His voice was low, measured, the exact same tone he used to negotiate a hostile takeover. The details, Dr. Evans. In plain English, Dr. Evans. A woman whose demeanor normally conveyed an expensive and comforting reassurance, sounded unusually tense. The twins carry an extremely rare paired genetic marker. It is benign for them, but during the shared circulatory phase of the pregnancy, it can act as a trigger. It could provoke a cascading autoimmune response in Serafina. Think of it as her body mounting a catastrophic defense against a phantom threat. The risks are severe: organ failure, stroke, and a maternal mortality rate that sharply spikes in the 3rd trimester. The floor beneath my Gucci loafers seemed to tilt. Maternal mortality. The words buzzed in my ears like wasps. I grabbed my still flat abdomen, a protective gesture so primal it felt older than time itself. And the solution, Liam asked. Not, how is she times not, what does this mean for my wife times, but the solution. There is a targeted, patented gene therapy. It is administered to Serafina in a series of infusions. It essentially hides the marker from her immune system. The success rate is over 95% for the mother. For the twins, zero risk. There was a moment of silence. Then Liam, my handsome, ambitious husband, heir to the sterling tech fortune, spoke the words that would forever divide my life into a times before times and an times after. The cost, $2 million. It is highly personalized, and the research is... Liam cut her off. Do not let my wife find out about this. The air rushed out of my lungs in a silent gasp. I swear my heart stopped. The world shrank to the crack in the wooden door, to the sliver of fluorescent light on the carpet. Dr. Evans stammered. Mr. Sterling, I have an ethical and legal obligation to my patient. Her life is in considerable danger. This is not an elective procedure. It is a critical medical intervention. Your obligation is to your client, which is me. Liam's voice was pure ice. I am the one paying your fees. I am the one whose family name is on the wing of this hospital. Serafina is highly anxious. The stress of knowing this could be just as damaging as the condition itself. We will monitor her closely. We will give her the best supportive care. Supportive care is palliative in this scenario. It is not a treatment. Your medical opinion is noted, but the decision is made. The therapy is prohibitively expensive for an outcome that, let's be honest, is not guaranteed. My wife is strong. We will rely on that. His tone shifted, becoming smoother, like a blade sliding back into its sheath. Now, the paperwork. I want her file to reflect a standard, low-risk twin pregnancy. Any notes regarding this marker or its theoretical treatment must be deleted. A separate. encrypted file, accessible only to you and me. Understood. I heard the rustle of papers, the soft click of a pen. My hands were shaking violently. I shoved them deep into the pockets of my tailored slacks, forcing my fingers to stay straight. Do not make a sound. Do not move. Dr. Evans's voice was heavy with defeat and something else that made me sick. I cannot, in good conscience. Your conscience is funded by the Sterling Family Trust. Doctor, your new genetic sequencing lab, the one you've been dreaming of. Consider this a prerequisite for its funding. Liam's voice dropped to a confidential murmur, but I caught every poisoned word. Sometimes, for the greater good of a family's legacy, difficult decisions must be made. A tragédie, should it occur? A young, tragic loss can unite people, generate immense public sympathy. It clears the path for a necessary restructuring. My wife holds a significant amount of founders' shares in Aurora Tech. In the event of her passing, they revert to me per our shareholder agreement. The narrative of a grieving widower, left to raise twins alone, is powerful. It guarantees stability for the company, for the family's future. He was talking about my death as a narrative, as a corporate strategy. And the other matter, Dr. Evans asked, sounding ill. Sophia is 16 weeks along. The early tests confirm it's a boy. The trust clause to release the full estate demands a male heir. So, you see, Doctor, everything is aligning. A tragic loss. A bittersweet new beginning. The legacy continues. All that is required is your discretion. I didn't wait to hear more. I backed away, one silent, precise step after another. My product manager brain, trained for crisis control, was already overriding the shattered, screaming core of myself. Don't cry. Don't throw up. Don't confront him. I retrieved my bag at the nurse's station with a smile that felt carved out of wood. I muttered something about taking the wrong hallway and stepped out into the blinding California sun inside the quiet, leather-scented interior of my Tesla. I finally allowed myself to tremble, huge, tearing shakes that had nothing to do with the chill of the air conditioning. Liam was planning to let me die for my shares, for a male heir carried by his mistress, a data analyst, and for a more touching public image. The life I had built, that beautiful, shiny, silicone-coated life, was a precisely engineered lie, and I, Serafina Vance, had just received the blueprint for its destruction. I sat there until the tremors stopped, replaced by a cold, clarifying fury. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, the face of a woman about to go to war. Okay, I whispered to myself and to the tiny lives inside me. Let the games begin. But that firestorm in the clinic parking lot came later. Let me rewind. Let me show you how the beautiful trap was set 6 weeks earlier. Excuse me. Repeat that. I stared at the plastic stick on the edge of my marble bathroom sink, the one with the 2 brutally pink lines. I was VP of Product at Aurora Tech, a rising star in the Silicon Valley firmament. I managed multi-million-dollar launches and teams of brilliant, borderline insomniac engineers. And yet, in that moment, my entire vocabulary was reduced to single syllables. Liam, wrapped in a towel, his hair still damp from the shower, leaned over my shoulder. For a second, his famous sterling composure cracked. His jaw went slack. Then a wide, genuine smile broke across his face. He let out a shout of joy, a sound so undignified it made me laugh as he carefully spun me around. even in his excitement. 2 lines. That means, Sarah, I think we need a second opinion from a doctor, I said, my voice shaking with disbelief. But yeah, I think so. The following weeks were a happy, nauseous blur. The official confirmation, the first grainy ultrasound, and then the bombshell that felt like a miracle times 2. Well, hello there, the ultrasound tech said in a cheerful voice as she moved the wand over the cold gel on my belly. And who do we have here? There's one strong, perfect little heartbeat. And let's look a little further. Oh, wow. Liam, holding my hand, squeezed it tight. What is it? The tech's smile widened. There's another one in there. You're having twins. The world did a slow, happy somersault. Twins. An instant family. Liam's eyes shone with what looked like pure awe. He kissed my forehead, then my lips, right there in the exam room. Tfo. He breathed, triumphant. That night, we went to the Sterling estate in Atherton. What I thought would be a quiet family dinner turned into an impromptu celebration that felt more like a corporate launch party. Twins. Victoria Sterling, Liam's mother, declared, giving a single clap a dry, percussive sound. She was a woman carved from good bone structure and better investments. Robert, did you hear twins? My father-in-law, Robert Sterling, looked up from his iPad, a slow smile spreading across his aristocratic face. Excellent. Doubles the odds of a boy. He said it as if he were discussing portfolio diversification. Dad, Liam reprimanded lightly, but he was smiling as he poured glasses of 89 Dom Perignon that had appeared as if by magic. It's simple math. À leçon, Robert said, standing up to pat Liam on the shoulder. The trust favors a clear, direct line. A male heir or heirs simplifies everything. It guarantees stability. He raised his glass to the future, to the Sterling men. He felt a tiny, cold thread of discomfort. My babies weren't even the size of plums yet, and they were already being discussed in terms of probabilities and succession. I pushed it down. That was just how they were. They showed love through strategy. I took a sip of champagne. Though the bubbles did nothing to settle my stomach. We'll need to review Serafina's security detail, Victoria mused, already typing on her phone. And the diet. I'll send Natalie, my nutritionist, over, and we'll schedule regular checkups with Dr. Evans at Gensed. Only the best for our grandchildren. Mother, I think Sarah's OBGYN at Stanford is perfectly capable, Liam said, but his protest was weak. Nonsense. Genside runs the most advanced preventative panels. We need to be proactive. Ensure everything is optimal. Victoria's gaze fell on me, sharp and evaluating. You are carrying the future, dear. It's a heavy responsibility. We must manage it correctly. The word times manage, times stuck in my throat. I was a person, not a project. I forced a smile. I'm sure my doctor and I can... It's settled, Robert interrupted, not cruelly, but with a firmness that brokered no argument. We'll cover all expenses. Of course. Think of it as an investment. He chuckled at his own joke. Later, as Liam drove us back to our modern glass and redwood home in Palo Alto, I finally voiced my unease. Your parents are too much. I'm not a broodmare for the Sterling dynasty. Liam. He reached out, took my hand, and brought it to his lips. I know. I know. They're archaic, but they're excited. I'm times excited. This is about us. Sarah, our family. The rest is just noise. He glanced at me, his handsome profile illuminated by the dashboard lights. Just smile and let them do their thing. It makes them happy and takes the pressure off us. They'll handle all the tedious details. You just focus on growing our babies. It sounded reasonable. Protective, even. So, why did I feel as if I were being gently, but firmly, placed inside a beautifully decorated box? The tedious details began immediately. Nathalie, the nutritionist, arrived with a week's worth of prepackaged, bland meals. A sleek black SUV with a stoic driver showed up for my security, effectively tracking my every move. Appointments were booked at Genside with the renowned Dr. Evans. The first visit with Dr. Evans was a week after the Atherton dinner. The clinic was all soft lighting, abstract art, and a silence so profound it felt expensive. Dr. Evans was in her late 50s, with a soothing voice and eyes that missed nothing. Serafina, Liam, welcome, she said, shaking our hands. I'm thrilled to be working with you. Victoria and Robert speak so highly of you both. The consultation was exhaustive. Family histories, génétique questionnaire, blood draws that seemed more extensive than any I'd ever had. Liam was attentive, asking intelligent questions about zygosity and placental development. He was in full heir-apparent mode, charming and engaged. Dr. Evans was equally professional, though I caught her looking at me sometimes when Liam was speaking, a faint, unreadable expression in her eyes. I chalked it up to clinical scrutiny. We'll run the full spectrum of tests. Dr. Evans concluded. Some are very new, looking for markers most clinics don't even screen for yet. The Sterling family believes in staying on the cutting edge of everything, including health. Peace of mind is priceless, Liam said smoothly, his hand resting on the small of my back. As we walked out, Liam's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, a slight frown crossing his forehead before vanishing. Damn. Work emergency. Sophia in analytics is panicking over a data discrepancy for the board report. I have to head into the office. On a Saturday, I asked, "You know how startup life is?" He said, kissing my cheek. The hustle never stops. The driver will take you home. Order something. Rest up. I'll be late. So don't wait up. His smile was warm, but his eyes were already far away, tethered to the problem on his phone that night. Alone in our massive, quiet living room, picking at a Natalie-approved quinoa bowl, the loneliness felt heavier than usual. I pulled out my laptop, driven by instinct toward work, toward something I could control. I logged into the Aurora Tech server to review the progress of my latest product iteration. My access logs, a habit from my minor in cybersecurity, showed a recent login from Liam's profile into a financial modeling file he shouldn't have needed. The file was titled Times Long-Term Capital Liquidity Scenarios Post-Trigger Event. Trigger event. A cold, corporate term. What trigger event? A funding round. An IPO. I tried to open it. Password protected. A tiny red flag began to wave in the back of my mind. Faint. But persiste. I thought about the way his mother had said times manage, the way his father had said times investment, how easily Liam had accepted his family's takeover of my pregnancy, how he had looked at his phone. He's under pressure. I told myself, the family, the trust, the company. It's a lot, but the seed of doubt, tiny and hard, was already planted. The following weeks were a study in contrasts. In public, we were the golden couple. We attended a charity gala at the De Young Museum, where Liam proudly announced the twin pregnancy to a circle of envious friends and colleagues. His hand rested almost constantly on my belly. A possessive, proud gesture. I smiled until my cheeks ached. In private, the box was shrinking. Victoria showed up with a stack of folders from a high-end baby planner. We are looking at the old Solari estate in Los Altos Hills. For the nursery wing, it has the right natural light, and the security perimeter is already exceptional. We're not moving. Victoria, I said, trying to keep my voice light. We love this house. The twins can have the rooms down the hall. She gave me a pitying smile. Serafina, darling, sentimentality is lovely, but practicality is essential. That hallway is too long, and if there's an emergency... The Solari estate has an independent nanny suite and a fully equipped medical room. We are having it renovated. It is non-negotiable. I brought it up with Liam that night. He was in his home office, frowning at a spreadsheet. Oh, the house. Yeah. Mom mentioned it. It's a solid asset. Property appreciation over there is insane, and it is safer. Let's just roll with it for now. Okay, pick our battles. He didn't look up from the screen. My pregnancy and our children shouldn't be a battle. I said, my voice tighter than I intended. That got his attention. He spun his chair around, his expression a mask of patient concern. Sera, come on. Don't get emotional. They're trying to help. This is what they do. They solve problems with resources. We're lucky. Let them solve this. He walked over, knelt in front of me, and placed his hands on my knees. Once the babies are born and the trust thing is settled, we'll have all the freedom in the world. We can travel, build that Tahoe house you always talk about. Just get through this phase with me. He sounded so logical, so exhausted. I felt guilty for my unease. He was dealing with a lot. I nodded, burying my doubts. Then came the call from Dr. Evans' office. We'd like you and Mr. Sterling to come in to discuss the full results of your genetic panels. Routine follow-up. The appointment was set. The day arrived. Liam was unusually quiet during the drive, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Are you okay? I asked. Got a lot on my mind. He said, board meeting this afternoon. Hostile matters. In the consultation room. Dr. Evans maintained a calm professionalism. She went over the basics. Everything looked perfect. The babies were measuring exactly on track. Strong heartbeats. Liam relaxed beside me, his arm around my shoulders. We'll just do a quick ultrasound today to confirm position. Doctor, Evans said. Then, Serafina, if you wouldn't mind waiting outside for a few minutes, I'd like to speak with Liam about some administrative matters regarding the expanded testing billing codes. That sort of thing. Boring insurance stuff. I smiled and agreed. Why wouldn't I? I went to the restroom and then remembered I had left my bag in the consultation room. I walked back down the quiet hallway, my steps muffled on the plush carpet. I reached for the doorknob and heard Liam's voice, low and intense. The details. Dr. Evans. In plain English. I froze. The rest filtered through the door. Every word. A shard of ice piercing the naive, happy future I had believed in. The marker. The risk. The $2 million therapy. His refusal. His cold, calculated plan for my death. My legacy. His male heir with Sophia. I stood there like a ghost in the hallway as my husband bartered my life for a cleaner balance sheet and a better PR story. When he finally said, Do not let my wife find out about this. It wasn't a request. It was an order, a death sentence handed down in a whisper. I didn't scream. I didn't burst in. The woman I had been, the woman who believed in the fairy tale, died in that hallway. Another took her place. Someone with everything to lose and nothing to trust. Someone with the experience of launching products in Silicon Valley. A lifetime of fight stored inside her, and a heart that had just turned to cold. Hard data. I stepped back, retrieved my bag, walked out, sat in my car, and shook while the truth rearranged my universe. The man I loved was a monster. My life was a ledger entry, and my pregnancy, the thing that was supposed to be a joyous beginning, was now a race against a hidden clock. I looked at my reflection. The shock was receding, consumed by a new, steady flame. They thought I was a problem to be managed, a variable in their equation. They had absolutely no idea who they were dealing with. I was Serafina. I built products that scaled to millions of users. I debugged complex systems under impossible deadlines. I navigated the most cutthroat boardrooms in California. And I had just identified the most critical bug of my life. The vulnerability wasn't in any codebase. It was in my marriage. An exploit my own trusting heart. Fina. Time to patch that vulnerability. Time to write a new program. One with a very different output. I started the car. The engine purred. A sound of sleek, silent power. I had twins to protect. A life to reclaim. And a husband to destroy. Let the games begin. The drive back from Genside Clinic was an exercise in autopilot. My hands, now steady, gripped the wheel at 10 and 2. My eyes followed the familiar curves of Sand Hill Road, passing the fortress-like venture capital firms that housed the gods who decided which dreams lived and which died. Today, I felt like one of their failed investments, a promising startup whose founder had just been ousted in a hostile takeover. The product, my life, was still running, but the codebase had been hijacked. I could taste the bile of betrayal in the back of my throat. A sharp, chemical burn. $2 million. My life and our children's lives had a price tag. A tag Liam had deemed too high. A tag worth less than my Aurora Tech shares. Less than a seamless Sterling Trust transition. Less than the convenience of a sad backstory and a male heir named Sterling. I pulled into the driveway of our Palo Alto home, a masterpiece of glass and reclaimed wood that Architectural Digest had lovingly featured. It felt like a movie set. Now I understood that it was. I sat in the car, watching the late afternoon sun cast long, distorted shadows from the redwood. I needed a story, a performance. The product manager inside me took control, shoving the weeping, shattered wife into a dark closet. Define the objective. Identify key players. Mitigate immediate risk. Objective: protect the twins. Destroy Liam Sterling. Key player: Liam. Primary threat: adversary. Secondary threats: Victoria and Robert influences. Dr. Evans compromised. Asset: to liquidate myself. Assets: to acquire the twins. Immediate risk: Liam discovering that I know any change in my behavior that arouses suspicion. I took a deep, trembling breath that felt like inhaling crushed glass. Then, I practiced in the rearview mirror. I watched my face. I let the terror, the rage, and the dizzying grief wash over it. Then I violently smoothed it out. I summoned the memory of the pure, dizzying joy from the first ultrasound. I focused on that feeling and let it warm my eyes. I imagined Liam's face when he spun me around in the bathroom. The love in that moment had been real, I was sure of it. No. It didn't matter if it was real or not. Now, it was a weapon. I could weaponize it too. I painted on a soft, tired, happy smile. The smile of a pregnant woman after a long day. I fluffed my hair and reapplied clear lip gloss. I was preparing for the most important demo of my life. I walked into the house. Liam was already there, standing in the great room, looking out over the infinity pool. He turned, his face a mask of concern. He was already playing his part. Fine. So was I. Hey, he said, crossing the room with quick strides. He took my face in his hands, stroking my cheeks with his thumbs. His touch, which used to electrify me, now made my skin crawl. I leaned into him, forcing myself to blink softly. How are you feeling? You were very quiet on the phone after you texted from the car. All good, just tired. The twins are perfect. Dr. Evans says I'm a champion. Home soon. Kisses. I recited, my voice a little breathless. I rested my hands over his, seeing them again. It feels so real now. And Dr. Evans is so meticulous. So many questions. I rolled my eyes. A tired, affectionate gesture. I'm glad you handled the billing stuff. Insurance makes my head spin. I watched his eyes, those beautiful, treacherous blue eyes. I looked for any flicker, even a micro-expression. Nothing, just warm, relieved concern. That's my job, he said, kissing my forehead. You only have one job growing our babies. Let me handle the rest. That sentence, once sweet, now sounded like a death warrant. I just need to lie down for a bit. The nausea is coming back. Of course, I'll have Maria bring up some ginger tea. I retreated to our bedroom, the sanctuary that was now a crime scene. As soon as the door clicked shut, the smile vanished. I paced silently across the thick carpet. Think. I couldn't go to the police. What did I have? An overheard conversation. A respected doctor would deny it. Her career and fancy lab on the line. My word against Liam's, backed by his family's infinite resources. They would paint me as a hormonal, paranoid pregnant woman, perhaps suffering from prenatal anxiety. They'd have me institutionalized for my own safety before I could even utter the words criminally negligent homicide. I needed proof. Hard, digital, irrefutable proof. I needed to understand the entire architecture of his plan. My laptop. I opened it, my fingers flying across the keyboard. First, I set up a hidden, encrypted partition on my hard drive. I named it Times Project Nursery. Then I opened a new document. I typed out everything I remembered from the conversation as verbatim as possible. Do not let my wife find out about this. Prohibitively expensive for an outcome that is not guaranteed. The narrative of a grieving widower. Sophia is 16 weeks along. Ah boy. I logged the time, the date, next. I opened a clean browser in private mode. I found the publicly available summary of the Sterling family trust clauses. It was vague, but phrases like direct lineal descendants and succession incentives popped up everywhere. I needed the full document. I searched for Sophia and Sterling Capital. There she was, Sophia Reed, head of data analytics. Her employee badge photo showed a pretty, sharp-featured woman in her late 20s. With intelligent eyes and a confident smile, I felt a pang that was equal parts rage and, absurdly, pity. Did she know she was part of a plot that involved my murder, Or did she simply think she'd hit the jackpot, a rich, handsome husband disillusioned with his barren, overly anxious wife? I needed access. I needed to get inside Liam's world. An hour later, I went downstairs. My nausea had subsided. Liam was in his home office on a video call. His warm, authoritative voice bled through the door. The liquidity event must precede the trigger. Otherwise, the tax implications will be catastrophic. Rework the models and report back. I went to the kitchen, making some noise. He came out a few minutes later, smiling, feeling better, much, just hungry. I was thinking of ordering from that new Thai place. Perfect. I'll join you. I'm done for the night. He walked up behind me, wrapping his arms around me, his hands resting on my stomach. My girls, he murmured into my hair. I went rigid for a fraction of a second before forcing myself to relax against him. My girls? He had always said he wanted daughters. That was a lie too. Or just a convenient preference before the demands of the trust, and Sophia's son became the priority. Over dinner, served in exquisite ceramic bowls. He was attentive. So, Dr. Evans had no concerns. Everything is perfect, I said, taking a bite of pad thai and chewing slowly. Textbook. I am the picture of health. Strong heartbeats. Everything strong. I looked him dead in the eye, as if to say, with good care, there is no reason I shouldn't have a perfectly normal, healthy delivery. I was testing him, feeding him his own lie, wrapped in a blanket of blissful ignorance. Liam's smile didn't waver. A masterclass. That's my girl. I told you you're strong. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We are so lucky. The hypocrisy was so thick I could choke on it. We are, I agreed softly. So very lucky. Later, while he slept deeply beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The panic had solidified into a heart plan. I needed data, and I needed an ally. The first part came unexpectedly 2 days later. Liam was stressed about an upcoming board meeting at Sterling Capital. He'd been drinking more whiskey than usual. He had left his personal phone, a sleek, latest model device, charging on the kitchen island while taking an angry, loud call on his work phone in the study. I caught fragments. Unacceptable margins. Fire the whole team if you have to. I stared at the personal phone. It was locked with Face ID and a complex alphanumeric passcode, but I didn't know it. I had never snooped before. I had believed in trust. My naivety was a luxury I could no longer afford, but next to it, like a gift from a malicious god, sat his old phone, an earlier model. He used it as a glorified iPod for the house sound system, loaded with old playlists. It was docked on a speaker stand. Charging. It had a simple swipe to unlock feature. He had never bothered to update it. My heart hammered against my ribs. I glanced toward the study. His voice was still raised. I picked up the old phone. My thumb left a sweaty smudge on the glass. I swiped. It unlocked. The home screen was a photo of us hiking in Big Sur, both of us laughing. The stab of pain was physical. I swiped it away. I went to settings. Find My iPhone Times was active. Good. I opened the App Store. It was still logged into his main Apple ID. I had about 3 minutes. Max. I didn't have time to browse. I needed a Trojan horse, something that would give me ongoing access. My mind raced. I was a product manager, not a hacker, but I understood systems. I quickly searched for and downloaded a legitimate, popular system cleaner app, one that requested deep access to storage and required a device administrator profile to run. I installed it, granting every permission it asked for. My fingers trembled. but they were precise. While it was setting up, I navigated to iCloud settings. Cellular backup was toggled on. That old phone was probably still backing up photos, contacts, and notes to his cloud, even if he wasn't actively using it. The Cleaner app finished its setup. Among its many legitimate-sounding features was one called Network Log Monitor for optimization. It was, essentially, a packet sniffer that could theoretically log the device's network traffic. I turned it on. From the study, Liam's voice grew louder. He was wrapping up. I opened the Messages app. The threads were old, from when this was his primary phone, but there, sandwiched between golf jokes with buddies and family chats, was a thread with Sophia. The preview of the last message, from over a year ago, was innocent times, thanks for the notes. Liam will review the deck. But the thread was long. I couldn't read it now. I opened his email. Same thing. Old synced emails. I went to his notes. Bingo. A note titled Times Trust Scenarios. I tapped it. Password protected. Damn. Sarah, have you seen my other phone? Liam's voice came from the hallway. I almost dropped the old iPhone. In 2 swift motions, I swiped away the Notes app, force closed the Cleaner app, and set the phone back on the dock. Screen down. Just as he walked into the kitchen, "Your other phone?" I asked, turning from the sink where I was now rinsing a glass. My back to him. "It's not on the island." "Oh, here it is. Thought I lost it. The board is being a bunch of dinosaurs." He came up behind me, brushing his nose against my neck. His breath smelled of whiskey and exhaustion. "I'm gonna hit the shower. Don't stay up." "Okay," I said quietly. That night, in the dead hours, lying next to his sleeping body, I used my own laptop. I navigated to the iCloud login associated with the Apple ID on the old phone. I had seen the username, the password. I tried a few common variations. His mother's maiden name, plus his birth year. Declined. The name of his first boat, plus an exclamation point. Declined. I thought about the password-protected note. Trust scenarios. What would he use? Something he wouldn't forget. Something meaningful to the trust. I typed, Sterling Hire, 2025. The iCloud dashboard unlocked for a split second. I just stared at the screen. I was in. I didn't dive in immediately. It was the fastest way to get caught if he had login alerts sent to his new phone. I spent 20 minutes observing the structure photos. Contacts. Notes. Mail. Backups. I created a new secret email address using an encrypted service. I set up email forwarding from his iCloud account to that new address for any email containing the words Times Evans, Genocide, Therapy, Sophia, Prenatal, Trust, Eir, and a few other key terms. It was a clunky tool, but it was a start. Next, I went to the Times Find My Times app. I located his current phone. Then I opened the dashboard of the Cleaner app from the old phone, which I had synced to a dummy account. The network log was a mess of code, but I could see connected devices. His new phone, Liam's iPhone 15, appeared as a recently connected device via Bluetooth. The app had a notification mirror test feature. I toggled it for the old phone, routing a copy of all its notifications to a web portal. If his new phone mirrored notifications to the old one, I might catch something. It was amateur. Patchwork, investigative work. But it was a baseline. The next morning, the first forwarded email hit my secret inbox. It was a receipt from a high-end prenatal vitamin boutique addressed to Sophia Reed, shipped to an address in San Jose. The order, placed 2 weeks prior, included a blue gender reveal confetti cannon. The confirmation was a physical blow. I sat at the kitchen table, the bright California sun looking obscenely cheerful, and read the line over and over. Blue. So it was real. All of it. A few days later, the Sterling Capital board meeting came and went. Liam was tense afterward. He decided to go for a drive to clear his head. I watched the Times Find My Times app on my laptop. His phone moved south towards San Jose. It stopped at an apartment complex. It stayed there for 2 hours and 17 minutes. When he returned, he smelled of a different body wash, something with sandalwood. His was bergamot and oak moss. Just needed to think, he said, kissing my cheek. Drove down to Half Moon Bay. The ocean always helps. Glad it helped, I said, pouring him a glass of water. My hand didn't even shake. The Cleaner app's web portal delivered its first treasure a week later. A mirrored notification popped up from his new phone. It was a calendar alert. Dinner WSR, 7 p.m. Village Pub, Sophia and Robert. My blood ran cold. An hour later, another notification. A text message preview. I could only see the first few words on the portal. Dad says keep it quiet until after the... It was cut off. It was enough. They were all in on it. Liam. His parents. Probably Sophia. Absolutely a conspiracy. With my twins and me as the sacrificial lambs, I needed more than digital scraps. I needed someone who knew how to navigate this world, someone who could help me understand it, and someone who could fight back. I thought of the one person I knew who lived to expose the rot behind Silicon Valley's shiny facade. I hadn't spoken to Chloe Rossi in over a year. We'd met at a Women in Tech event. We bonded over a mutual disdain for arrogant bro-coder culture and kept loosely in touch via social media. She was an investigative journalist for a respected tech publication, known for her deep-dive exposés on corporate malfeasance and gender discrimination scandals. Her last big piece had been about a startup CEO who used company funds to quietly settle multiple harassment claims. It was a risk, but staying isolated was a bigger risk. I used a burner phone I had bought with cash at a strip mall 30 miles away. I texted a number I hoped was still hers. From a draft I had written and rewritten a dozen times. Clue. It's Serafina Vance. We met at the Google Women's Summit. I have a story that ruins careers and changes laws. It involves the Sterling family. I need to talk somewhere. No one knows us. Total discretion. The reply came an hour later. Serafina. I remember the product wizard. I'm listening. Golden Gate Park. Shakespeare Garden. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. Bench near the sundial. Come alone. I'll be reading a copy of Wired with a green cover. The next morning, I told Liam I had a prenatal massage and a long lunch with an old colleague in town. He barely looked up from his iPad. Have fun. Babu. You deserve it. The Shakespeare Garden was quiet. A hidden oasis of manicured hedges and flowers mentioned in the bard's plays. I spotted her immediately. Chloe looked just as I remembered sharp gaze. Messe dark bun. And an air of coiled intensity. The Green Times, Wired Times magazine sat on the bench beside her. I sat down without looking at her. Thanks for coming. She didn't look at me either. Her eyes were fixed on a bed of rosemary. You said it was about the Sterlings. Start talking. So I talked. I kept my voice low. Monotone. I told her about the twins. The family's picture-perfect reaction. The appointment at Genside. And then I told her what I heard. I recited the phrases verbatim from the document I had memorized. Do not let my wife find out. Prohibitively expensive. The narrative of a grieving widower. Sophia, is 16 weeks. Ah, boy. When I finished, there was a long silence. A bee buzzed lazily around a lavender bush. Jesus Christ. Serafina, she whispered finally, turning to look at me. Her eyes were wide not with disbelief, but with horrified professional recognition. Do you have proof? Anything? I handed her the burner phone. On it was a screenshot of the forwarded email for the blue gender reveal canon sent to Sophia Reed, and a grainy, time-stamp screenshot of the Times Find My Times app showing Liam's phone location at the San Jose apartment complex for over 2 hours, overlaid on a map. This is his mistress. She's a data analyst at his family's firm. She's pregnant with a boy. He was with her the night he told me he was driving to the ocean to think. My voice sounded chillingly calm. I have more. I'm getting more. He's planning to let me die. Fluey. For my company shares, and to fulfill a trust clause that demands a male heir. Chloe took the phone. Swiped. Zoomed in. Her face went pale, then hardened into a grim line. This goes way beyond a prenup fraud. This is conspiracy to commit murder, or at least depraved indifference that could lead to homicide. She handed the phone back as if it were toxic. Have you gone to the police? With what Overheard here say, and a party supply receipt, his family owns judges. Chluwa. The doctor will deny everything. They'll label me unstable and have me locked up or declared an unfit mother before I can blink. I need concrete, irrefutable proof, and I need a way out that doesn't end with me in a psych ward or a morgue. She stared at me, and I saw the calculations flashing behind her eyes. The journalist recognizing the story of a lifetime. The woman recognizing a person in mortal danger. What do you want from me? I don't know yet. Advice. Context. You've seen the guts of this world. Have you ever heard anything like this before? She leaned back, looking up at the sky. Not this brazen, not with a literal death sentence. But I've written pieces on coercive control in high-net-worth divorces, on trusts that incentivize specific reproductive outcomes, on sudden widowhoods that proved highly financially convenient for certain tech founders. She looked at me. You're not the first woman to become an obstacle in a wealth transfer scheme. You'd just be the most permanently removed. The clinical way she said it solidified the nightmare. I wasn't crazy. I was a type, a category, a liability to be managed. I need to get into his primary devices, his emails, his texts with the doctor, with his parents. I need the trust documents. I need everything. You can't do that alone. This isn't hacking an old iPod. This is Major League. If he catches you, I know. And if I hesitate? What if I know some people, women like us, who have been through their own versions of hell with tech royalty? One is a security consultant, a white-hat hacker. The other is a lawyer, left a mega firm after seeing how the system eats victims alive. They are discreet, and they hate the Sterlings and their kind. A dangerous, necessary lifeline. Can you vouch for them with my life? And they would vouch for me with theirs. We have a sort of support group. A grim little smile touched her lips. We call ourselves the Furies, the ancient goddesses of vengeance. It's perfect. I want to meet them. This isn't a book club. Serafina, if you bring them in, there is no going back. This becomes real. This becomes a war. I held her gaze directly, letting her see the cold fire that had replaced the terror. It's already a war. I just didn't know I was on the battlefield until now. I am done being a casualty. I'm raising my own army. Chloe held my gaze for a long moment, then gave a sharp, decisive nod. Okay, give me a few days. I'll set it up somewhere safe. In the meantime, document everything. Every conversation. Every weird look. Every helpful suggestion from Victoria. Record what you can with the burner. But be careful. Assume your house, your car, and your devices are bugged. Use this. She pulled a cheap-looking prepaid flip phone from her bag. Untraceable. My number is saved under Flora. We use this only for emergencies. For now, play the perfect, naive, pregnant wife. Lean into it. You're tired. You're hormonal. You're focused on nurseries and baby names. You are absolutely zero threat. I took the phone. It felt solid. Real. A tool. Thanks. Chloe. Don't thank me yet, she said, standing up. Thank me when we've buried these bastards. I'll reach out via Flora. And Serafina, for God's sake, be careful. I watched her walk away, disappearing down a path lined with camellias. I stayed on the bench for a long time, the sun warming my face. The fear was still there, a freezing, constant hum in my veins. But beneath it, for the first time since that beige hallway, I felt something else. Power. I had a direction. I had a potential ally. I had a secret. I placed a hand on my belly. Where my daughters were growing, Mommy has a plan. I whispered when I got home. Liam was on the phone in his study. I caught the end of his conversation as I walked by, my footsteps silent on the hallway runner. Liquidity is key. Dad, once the Aurora shares consolidate under the estate after the tragic event, we can merge the verticals without that opposition on the board. It cleans everything up. I walked into the kitchen, my face arranged into a serene mask. I opened the fridge and grabbed a bottle of water. My hand was perfectly steady. I had my performance. I had my mission. And soon, I would have my team. I opened the hidden partition on my laptop. Project Nursery. I created a new document. I titled it simply Times Furies. Then I began typing, detailing everything from my meeting with Chloe, the garden, her words, the offer of help. The evidence was mounting, not enough for a court of law, but enough for the court of my own conviction. I saved the document, encrypting it with a new 2-4-character password I would never forget. A password built from the ashes of my old life. Sterling Mail Hair Will Fail 2025. I closed the laptop. I could hear Liam wrapping up his call, his footsteps approaching the kitchen. I grabbed a glossy catalogue of organic crib mattresses Victoria had sent over. I pasted a look of mild, overwhelmed, pregnant fascination on my face, just as he walked in. "Hey, you," he said, smiling. "How was the massage, Divine?" I said, returning the smile. The very picture of contented exhaustion, just what I needed. Let the games begin. The encrypted document titled Times, Furies Times, grew every day. It was no longer just a log of overheard conversations and suspicions. It was a survival plan and a roadmap for war. The sterile product manager, part of my brain, had fully taken over, compartmentalizing the boiling rage and bottomless grief into a background process. For now, the user interface, Serafina, the blissfully pregnant wife, had to be flawless. I became an actress inside the narrative. Liam and his family were writing for me. I threw myself into the role with Oscar-worthy dedication. I cooed with excitement over linen swatches for the nursery wing at the Solari estate, a house I had zero intention of ever setting foot in. I let Natalie, Victoria's nutritionist, dictate my meals. obediently swallowing steamed kale and quinoa, while secretly hiding protein bars in my gym bag. I complained about pregnancy brain, about fatigue, about feeling overwhelmed by it all. It made me look harmless, fragile, the perfect victim. Meanwhile, in the shadows, Project Furies escalated. The burner phone, Flora, buzzed 2 days after the garden meeting. A single, cryptic text from Chloe. Tomorrow, 4 p.m. 181 Otis Studio. Unit 12. Tell the camera you're here for the reclaimed wood bar table. The address led to an unassuming industrial building in South San Francisco. Unit 12 had a flat steel door with a discreet camera. I gave the passcode. A buzzer sounded, and the door unlocked. Inside was not a workshop, but a sleek, modern command center. The exposed brick walls were lined with whiteboards, covered in complex diagrams and lines of code. Server racks hummed quietly in a corner. A long table held several high-end laptops. 2 women looked up as I entered. One was Chloe. The other I recognized with a jolt. Elena Santos, a legend in certain circles, a former NSA cybersecurity prodigy who transitioned to the private sector, known for taking on massive corporations and winning brutal data breach litigations. She was in her early 40s, with a severe black bob and eyes that missed nothing. You're here, Chloe said without smiling. Serafina. Elena. Serafina. Elena gave me a curt nod. Chloe brought me up to speed. Show me what you've got. Skip the pleasantries. I like that. I pulled out the burner phone and my personal laptop, accessing the encrypted partition via a secure, isolated connection Elena directed me to. I walked them through everything. The details of the recorded conversation, the iCloud forwards showing the blue gender reveal canon, the times, find my times location data, the mirrored calendar alert for the dinner with SR. Elena examined the data, her fingers flying across her own keyboard, cross-referencing, tracking digital footprints I couldn't even see. After 10 minutes of tense silence, she leaned back. It's circumstantial, good enough for a news story. Maybe, but not for a criminal case, and certainly not enough to stop what's coming. Her voice was flat, analytical. The iCloud forwards are a decent start, but he could claim the texts from Sophia are just an affair, that the conversation with the doctor was a misunderstanding. The trust clause is disgusting, but not illegal. We need the knife, the smoking gun, the direct communication where he orders the doctor to hide the treatment or discusses the logistics of your death. I know, I said, my voice steady. I need to get into his primary device, his current phone, his work laptop. Elena shook her head. Too risky. He undoubtedly has enterprise-grade security, biometric lock, Tamper alerts. You trip one, the whole castle goes into lockdown, and you'll be in serious trouble. We need a bridge, something he uses that is less secure, but still connected to his main data pipeline. I thought of the old iPhone docked on the speaker stand. He has an old phone. He uses it as an iPod. It has a swipe to unlock. I installed a system cleaner app with network logging and notification mirroring. It's connected to his primary Apple ID. Elena's eyebrows raised about 1 millimeter. It was the closest to a compliment I was going to get. That's a start. A back door. But it's passive. We need to be active. We need to make him give us access. How? Chloe asked, frowning. Social engineering, Elena said, the ghost of a smirk on her lips. The weakest link in any security system is the human. You said he's stressed about a board meeting constantly. Something about liquidity events and merging verticals. Yes. Perfect. Elena swiveled her monitor to show us a complex flowchart. We create a low-level, believable crisis that forces him to access sensitive data from a non-standard device. The old phone, something that rattles him just enough to get sloppy. The plan was born in that room. Over the next 2 hours, it became elegant in its cruelty. We were going to hack Liam, not through code, but through his own arrogance and stress. The opportunity arrived 3 days later. Liam was prepping for Sterling Capital's quarterly board review, a high-stakes event where the fund's performance was dissected. He was irritable, distracted, snapping over minor inconveniences. Perfect. Phase 1 began with Chloe using her press credentials. She accessed a semi-public investor database and scraped the email addresses of several mid-level analysts at Sterling Capital from a burner account. She sent a highly convincing phishing email to one of them, spoofed to look like it came from the firm's IT department, requesting an immediate password reset due to a security anomaly. The analyst, likely overworked and anxious, clicked the link and entered their credentials. It didn't give us anything critical, but it created noise. A minor security alert would trip in Sterling Capital's system. Phase 2 was on me. That night, as Liam ranted about incompetent analysts and lazy IT guys, I played my part. "Honey," I said, my voice dripping with tired concern. "You're exhausted. Come sit. Let me pour you a drink." I brought him a whiskey. "It's the usual board BS. Worse," he grumbled, sinking into his favorite Ames chair. Some idiot analyst might have compromised their login. IT is running a sweep, but it's a headache. Now I have to verify the integrity of half my presentation models. He sat on the ottoman at his feet, a gesture of submission and support I'd seen in old movies. "Can't you just—" "I don't know. Run a check from your secure laptop." Secure laptop is at the office. It grabbed it for the sweep. I have the data on the private server. But to access it from here, I need the two-factor authentication from my phone. And he trailed off, rubbing his temples. "It's a whole mess. I saw my opening. What about your old phone? The one you use for music? Isn't it still linked to your iCloud? Maybe you could at least open the older versions of the models. Compare them. Better than nothing." I made it sound like a naive, helpful suggestion. Liam frowned, then looked over at the old iPhone sitting innocently on its dock. "That thing is ancient. Probably doesn't even have the right apps. Worth a shot," I said, batting my eyelashes slightly. "You always say I'm your lucky charm. Maybe tonight I'm a tech charm." He gave me a tired half-smile. "All right. Can't hurt to look." He got up, unplugged the old phone, and brought it to the couch. He swiped to unlock it. I held my breath. He opened the mail app. It synced slowly. He groaned, scrolling. Old copies. Useless. He opened the Notes app. The password-protected note, "Trust Scenarios," was right there. He didn't open it. My heart sank. Then he opened the Messages app. The old threads loaded, and there was the thread with Sophia. He stared at it, his face hardening. He must have forgotten it was still on that device. He swiped quickly to delete the entire conversation, but in that instant, as his thumb paused, I saw it. From my angle, I could just barely read the preview of the most recent message, which, on that old phone, wasn't recent at all. It was from over a year ago. It was from Sophia. It read Times Liam. I understand the timeline, but this is killing me. Playing assistant. seeing you with her. You promised that after the merger, the rest was cut off, but it was enough. A time stamp. A promise. Her times me. Liam deleted the thread, then emptied the trash. He looked up and saw me watching. His expression turned guarded, just clearing out old junk. He said, way too casually, "Sûr." I smiled. "Want more whiskey? Yeah, thanks." As I walked to the bar, my mind raced. He had opened the Messages app. The Cleaner app's network log would have captured that session. Maybe it cached some data. It was a long shot, but it was a thread. Later that night, when Liam was snoring softly, I crept downstairs. The old phone was back on its dock. I grabbed it. My heart hammering, I opened the Cleaner app's portal. The network log was a sea of gibberish, but I searched for packet identifiers associated with iMessage. I found a cluster. They were encrypted, of course, but the app, in its clunky logging, had also captured a tiny plaintext file containing message metadata for the synced session. Sender, receiver, timestamp, and there, among the data dump, I saw a string that made my blood run cold. It wasn't from the old Sophia thread. It was metadata from a message sent 2 weeks ago, from Liam's number to a number tagged in the cache as Times Evans GS. The timestamp corresponded to the day after my fateful clinic appointment. The message preview was truncated, but it read Times. Appreciate your discretion. The separate file is essential. My assistant will coordinate the separate file, the encrypted one, the one detailing my death sentence. I had a direct line, a time-stamped communication between Liam and Dr. Evans, established right after the conspiracy was set. It wasn't the contents, but it was a signpost pointing right at him. I documented everything, saved the logs, the metadata, took screenshots of the Cleaner app dashboard. I uploaded it all to a new encrypted cloud drive Elena had set up, accessible only to the 3 of us. The next morning, Flora buzzed. Studio. Non. Bring everything. When I arrived, there was a third woman there, Maya Chin, younger than Elena, with a sharp, intense gaze and intricate geometric tattoo sleeves covering her forearms. She was introduced as a hardware and digital forensics specialist, the person you called when you needed to know if a device was bugged, or how to plant a bug without leaving a trace. I've analyzed your data. Elena started without preamble, pulling up files on a large monitor. The metadata is good. It establishes a pattern of communication, but it's not enough. We need the contents of the separate file. We need the trust documents. We need current communications with Sophia and his parents. She turned to me. You said he uses a password manager. Yes. LastPass. He's obsessive about it. Distinct, complex passwords for everything, but he has to log into it somehow. Maya spoke up, her voice low and precise. Biometric Face ID on his phone. Yes. He never types the master password, just uses his face. Then we get his face to unlock it for us, Maya said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. While he's sleeping, it's tricky with the newer models because they have attention detection to prevent exactly this. But if you can angle the phone just right, in low light, with his eyes even slightly visible, it might work. It's a long shot, but it's the only way into the master vault, and even more dangerous. Intimate plan took shape than the last one. It repulsed me, but I nodded. I can try. Is there another way? Clue cut in. The Sterling Foundation's annual Innovation Frontier Gala. It's in 3 weeks. It's their biggest event. Every partner, every investor, the entire tech elite will be there. Liam is giving the keynote speech. The pressure will be immense. He'll be distracted. The facade has to be perfect. She looked at me. Then at Eleanor. That's our window. That's when we transition from gathering evidence to executing the exit strategy. We need everything by then. Execute what I asked. The air growing thick. I get the proof. We go to the press, the FBI. And then, what Elena cut in. Start a years-long legal battle against the Sterlings, while you're visibly pregnant and a target, even with proof. He'll spin it. He'll say the doctor misunderstood. He'll say, Sophia is a stalker. He'll paint you as unstable. The therapy is elective, not standard of care. He has the best lawyers money can buy. You'll be tied up in court long after. She didn't finish the sentence. We need a solution that neutralizes the threat permanently and leaves you clean. A cold silence filled the room. I knew what she was implying. We all did. This had moved beyond self-defense. It was moving into entirely different territory. We aren't SSI. I whispered, No. Maya said quietly, We're engineers. We identify system flaws, and we exploit them. Liam Sterling is a man who cuts corners, who takes risks, who believes his own hype and thinks he is untouchable. We just have to find the flaw in his system and let nature take its course. Chloe leaned forward. The gala, the main stage. It's a custom build every year. Right, all the AV, the lighting, the teleprompters. I nodded, seeing where this was going. Yeah, it's a massive production. They bring in a specific vendor. Sterling Capital has used them for years. Maya's eyes lit up with technical fervor. Old stage setup. Vintage wiring. Lots of high-power equipment in close proximity to a sweating. Standing speaker. A man under tremendous stress. Maybe with a slight heart murmur he doesn't even know about. She looked at Elena. A system failure could be convincing and ultimately untraceable to a specific actor if it's engineered as a cascading fault. Elena nodded slowly. A tragic accident at a highly public event. With hundreds of witnesses, no one would question a grieving, pregnant widow, especially one who inherits everything. The cold, absolute audacity of it took my breath away. They were talking about killing him, not in a dark alley, but on a stage in front of everyone, making it look like a tragic accident. A system failure. My husband's system. The part of me that was still the woman who had said I do recoiled in horror. The mother wolf. The product manager, facing an existential bug. Nodded slowly. We'd need schematics. Access to the equipment before the event. A way to trigger the fault that can't be traced. That's my department, Maya said. Get me the vendor name. Schematics if you can. I'll handle the rest. You. She looked at me. Have one job before the gala. Get into that password manager. We need to know every detail of his plan. The trust documents. The comms with the doctor. All of it. It's our insurance policy. If something goes wrong, we have the truth to burn it all down. The next week was a marathon of tension and acting. I played the doting wife, helping Liam practice his speech, offering unhelpful feedback he ignored, bringing him tea. I watched his routines. He always left his phone on his nightstand. Screen up. He slept deeply, especially after a few whiskeys the night before the gala. The pressure was palpable. He rehearsed his lines in front of the mirror. The future isn't built by the timid. It is taken by the bold, those willing to make the hard choices for a greater vision. He caught my eye in the reflection. "What do you think? It's powerful," I said, smiling from the bed. "Very you. Hard choices." The phrase now tasted like ash. He came to bed late, smelling of whiskey and exhaustion. He fell asleep almost instantly, his breathing deep and even. I waited an hour, until the digital clock read 2:07 a.m. My hands were freezing. I slid out of bed and walked silently to his side. His phone was there, face up. I picked it up carefully, the screen illuminated with the time. I angled it toward his face. The Face ID icon spun and spun, failed. Attention detection. I had it in front of his face, but his eyes were closed, gently, ever so gently. I used my thumb to barely brush his eyelid. Lifting it a fraction, he stirred, murmuring. I froze. His breathing settled again. I tried again, tilting the phone. The icon spun and unlocked. I was in. My fingers trembled as I opened the LastPass app. It asked for biometrics again. I aimed the phone at his face. This time it worked. The vault opened. A universe of secrets spilled onto the screen. I searched Times Evans, found an entry Times doc. Inside, with a username and a 16-character password, I searched Times Sterling Trust. There was a PDF attached. I searched Times Sophia. There was an entry for a secure messaging app I'd never heard of. With a password, I couldn't download them here. Too risky. But I could take pictures. With the phone on silent, I started snapping, scrolling through the vault, logging every entry that looked relevant. Out order shares. Liquidity. Event. Family legal. B. Crawford. Residence security. SQSF. It took 12 minutes. An eternity. Every second stretched out, ticked off by the sound of Liam's breathing. Finally, I had it. I locked the phone, placed it back exactly as it was, and crept back to my side of the bed. I didn't sleep. I lay there, the photons of his secrets burning in my mind. The next morning, while Liam was in the shower, I airdropped the photos from my phone to my laptop, then immediately deleted them from my device. I uploaded them to the encrypted drive an hour later, at the safe house. The four of us, the Furies, reviewed the harvest. The password for the separate file gave us access to an encrypted cloud folder, and there it was, a scanned letter from Dr. Evans on Genside letterhead, formally detailing the risk of the genetic marker, the proposed therapy, its cost, and the dire prognosis without it, and below it, a notarized document signed by Liam Sterling declining the treatment. The stated reason times financial infeasibility and unproven efficacy. It was dated the day after my appointment. We had the knife. The trust documents were even more damning. The clauses were Byzantine, but the essence was clear. Upon the death of a spouse, all marital assets in the wife's name reverted to the Sterling bloodline trustee Liam for management in the interest of the lineage. A male heir of direct descent triggered the immediate, tax-free release of the entire intergenerational trust, valued in the hundreds of millions. A female heir delayed it for decades. It wasn't just a preference, it was a financial necessity. The logs from the secure messaging app, once we accessed them, were a sordid chronicle. Plans with Sophia, conversations with his father, Robert, about resolving the Serafina situation and ensuring a smooth transition. Instructions to the family lawyer, Benjamin Crawford, about updating his will to name Sophia's unborn son as the beneficiary, contingent upon certain foreseeable changes in marital status. It was all there, a conspiracy in black and white, and digital code. Maya broke the silence. her voice grim. I've got the schematics for the gala stage. It's a custom build, but the main power distribution is running off a refurbished vintage unit. Overloaded circuits. A faulty ground at the podium. Compounded by Sai. A spilled glass of water from a nervous speaker. It could be highly dangerous, almost impossible to trace as sabotage if done right. A tragic accident. Elena looked at me. It's your call. Serafina, we have enough to go nuclear. We can leak it all to the press. The SEC. The medical board. It will destroy him, but it will destroy you. 2. The scandal. The trials. The constant scrutiny. Your daughters will grow up under that shadow. I looked at the evidence on the screen. The cold, clinical language of my death sentence. The eager planning of my replacement. I thought of the twins moving softly inside me. I thought of the stage, the flashing lights, the crowd, Liam at the podium, talking about hard choices and bold visions. I didn't see a husband. I saw a critical system flaw, a bug that would corrupt everything it touched, a vulnerability that needed to be patched. Permanently, I looked each of them in the eye. Chlui, the truth seeker. Elena, the system breaker. Maya, the engineer of silent consequences. We proceed with the original plan, I said, my voice sounding foreign calm, and absolutely certain. At the gala, we end this. Chlue nodded. Fierce light in her eyes. Elena gave a crisp nod of approval. Maya simply said, I'll need access to the venue the day before for the final walkthrough. Can you get me in? I'm the pregnant wife. I said, a cold smile touching my lips for the first time in weeks. I'm overseeing the floral arrangements for the head table. I can bring my technical consultant to ensure the setup doesn't interfere with the centerpieces. We spent the next 2 hours finalizing the details. The fault, Maya would introduce a nearly invisible shunt on the ground wire of the podium's integrated monitor, designed to fail under a specific combination of moisture and load. The contingency, a small, remotely triggered relay I could activate from a modified key fob inside my clutch. A final fail-safe to close the circuit at the exact right moment. My alibi would be in the front row, visibly pregnant. The very picture of wifely admiration. As I left the safe house, the weight of what we were about to do settled over me, not as a burden, but as a mantle. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about deletion, about removing a piece of malicious code from our world. I drove home, a California sun glaring against the windshield. Liam was at a final rehearsal. The house was quiet. I went to the pristine, unused nursery in our house and sat in the rocking chair. I placed my hands on my stomach. Soon, I whispered, soon it will be safe. Mommy is going to fix everything. I wasn't praying. I was committing to a launch sequence. The countdown had begun. The target was locked. All systems were go. 7:40 AM, the day of the gala. My reflection in the bathroom mirror was that of a stranger. Hair perfectly styled in soft waves. Flawless makeup. That radiant, natural, dewy look that took 45 minutes to achieve. The emerald green silk dress, cut to drape elegantly over the small but defined curve of my bump, was a thoughtful gift from Victoria. It was armor. I smoothed the fabric. My hands were steady. Inside me, a storm of silent calculations executed its final diagnostic. System check. Primary objective times. Neutralize threat permanently. Method times induced system failure on stage. Contingency times. Digital dead man's switch. Evidence package times. Secure. Roll times alibi. Performance. Final trigger authorization times me. I touched the delicate diamond necklace at my throat. Another sterling heirloom. The modified key fob was in my vintage Judith Leiber clutch, next to my lipstick and a tissue. It looked like a decorative charm. It was the kill switch from the shower. I heard Liam singing off-key, some classic rock anthem. He was in a surprisingly good mood. Why wouldn't he be? Tonight he would unveil his grand vision to Silicon Valley's elite. And shortly after, the final obstacle to his perfect legacy, me, would be eliminated. He was almost euphoric. I practiced my smile in the mirror, the warm, proud, slightly dazzled by her husband's smile. I had gotten terrifyingly good at it 4 days prior. The infiltration. The schematic is a nightmare. Maya's voice was crisp on the encrypted video call. Her face, framed by the cold light of a CAD program, was pure focus. Chloe, Elena, and I appeared in boxes on the screen, each from a secure location. It's not just old. It's a Frankenstein. They've integrated new LED screens and a wireless teleprompter into a power grid that looks like it was wired during the first dot-com boom. See this? A red circle highlighted a junction box on the blueprint. This is the main feed for the podium. The ground line is original. It's under-spec'd for the current load, even on a good day. So it could fail on its own, Chloe asked, her journalistic mind looking for plausibility. It could. But times could. Times isn't a plan. We need it to fail. And we need to control times when Maya zoomed in. The podium itself has a metal chassis. The plan is to introduce a minor fault right here. At the ground point, inside the pedestal, a high-resistance splice. It will pass initial checks, but under sustained load. And crucially, with the introduction of a conductive liquid, say, a sweaty hand or a spilled glass of water, it creates a potential difference. The current will seek the path of least resistance, which, in a sweating man holding a grounded metal frame, will be through him. A technical, cold description of a murder. I felt nothing but professional interest. The contingency I asked, the shunt I'm installing, is passive. It's a flaw. To guarantee it triggers at the precise moment. You have this. She held up a small, complex circuit board with a tiny antenna. This gets wired in parallel. It's a remote-activated relay. It's your button. You close the circuit with the key fob. It bypasses all safety measures and creates a direct short. The primary fault provides the plausible cause. This is the guarantee. It's untraceable post-event because it will vaporize with the discharge. And the conscience switch, Elena asked, voicing what we had all agreed was non-negotiable. A way to abort, to leave it as a simple glitch and not a weapon. Maya nodded. The relay has a physical manual disconnect. Pin. You pull the pin, and the remote circuit breaks. Only the passive fault remains. You will have access to it. It's cleverly camouflaged. If you decide to pull it, the worst that happens is a blown fuse and some embarrassed AV techs. No fireworks. I need to see it. I need to know where the pin is. That's why you're bringing me in as your consultant tomorrow. Maya replied. Final walkthrough. I'll point it out. You will have a 5-second window from the moment he steps on stage to decide to pull the pin or not. 3 days prior, the venue, the Innovation Frontier Gala, was being held at a decommissioned military hangar in Alameda that the Sterlings had converted into an event space. It was all raw concrete, steel beams, and money. Today, it was a chaos of rolling scaffolding, coiled cables, and shouting crews. I wore a loose linen dress and oversized sunglasses, playing the part of the slightly micromanaging, aesthetics, obsessed wife. Maya, beside me, was dressed in black tech gear and a lanyard that read Times AV Systems Veraritas. She carried a sophisticated tablet and a toolkit. Mrs. Sterling. What an honor. Dave, the exhausted-looking stage manager, hurried over, wiping his hands on his jeans. Everything is running on schedule. The floral mock-ups for the head table are over there. Thanks. Dave. This is Maya from Veraritas Consulting. We had some feedback from the Tokyo charity event last year about harmonic interference between the subwoofers and the teleprompter feeds. I wanted her to run a quick compatibility check with your new setup. Won't take a minute. Dave looked distressed. We're really tight on time. Victoria Sterling is very keen on avoiding a repeat of the scrolling text issues. I said softly, invoking the dragon's name. Hey, Ballard. Of course. Right this way. Maya gave me a slight nod and followed him into the tech pit below the main stage. I wondered, pretending to admire the lighting rig. My heart was a drum in my chest. 15 minutes later, Maya rejoined me, her face unreadable. All set, she murmured as we walked back to the car. Shunt is placed. Relay is wired. The pin. She discreetly opened her tablet, showing a close-up photo of the inner chassis of the podium. A small, brass-colored bolt, seemingly one among dozens holding the assembly together, was circled. Looks like a screw. It's not. It's threaded plastic. A quarter turn counterclockwise with your fingernail, and it pops out, breaking the remote circuit. It's on the inner left wall, 3 inches from the floor. You have to kneel and reach in. Can I access it during the event? During the pre-reception cocktail hour, the stage will be clear. A 30-second window. If you aren't seen, after that, it's a fortress. I burned the image into my memory. A tiny fake bolt with the weight of a conscience. 2 days prior, the pressure cooker. We need to discuss the postnatal trust allocations. Serafina. Victoria's voice sounded like chilled vodka over the phone. Benjamin has prepared some documents. Just a formality to ensure the children's interests are perfectly aligned with the family's guardianship. Translation: sign away control of any assets that might come to me or the twins. My fingers tightened around the phone. Of course. Victoria. Although my lawyer always says I shouldn't sign anything without her present. You know how they are. A glacial pause. The Sterling family times are times your lawyers. Dear, our interests are yours. I will bring the documents to the gala. Liam can witness. We will handle it quietly in one of the green rooms before the speeches. I won't take no for an answer. The line clicked dead. Later. Liam approached me, his face a mask of apologetic frustration. Sarah, I know Mom is a lot, but just humor her. Sign the damn papers. We can undo it all later. After the babies are born and everything is settled, it's just to get her off our backs tonight. I need to be focused, not dealing with family drama. It was so transparent. If I signed and then had a sudden, tragic postpartum complication, those documents would be ironclad. My daughters would be prisoners of the Sterling Trust, and all my Aurora shares would fall under Liam's guardianship. You're right. Isahil, leaning into him. It's just stress. I'll sign. For you. For a peaceful night. He kissed the top of my head. That's my girl. Always pragmatic. The night before, the Last Supper, Robert and Victoria hosted a family briefing dinner in Atherton. The air was thick with arrogant anticipation. Robert pontificated on market dynamics. Victoria critiqued the gala menu. Liam beamed, rehearsing his talking points. Then the doorbell rang. "My dear," the housekeeper announced. "Mr. Sterling." "Ah, Miss Reed is here. She says she has the final data models you requested for the mid-quarter review." Sophia hadn't been invited. She had been summoned. She walked in, wearing a professional, sleek wrap dress that did little to hide her rounding belly. The room froze. Victoria's smile was razor-thin. Robert gave a slow nod of approval. Liam looked stunned for a moment, then recovered. "Sophia, thanks for making the drive. Everyone remembers Sophia, my lead data analyst, the genius behind our new predictive liquidity models. He was a terrible actor under pressure." "Of course," Victoria said, her eyes raking over Sophia's stomach like a real estate appraisal. "How are you feeling?" "Dear, you look robust." "Very well. Thank you, Mrs. Sterling," Sophia said softly. "She couldn't meet my eyes." "Good." She had a shred of shame left. "Join us for dessert," Robert boomed. "An order, not an offer. My dear, set a place for Ms. Reed next to Liam." The meal was a study in exquisite torture. Sophia sat where I usually sat. Victoria asked her pointed questions about her modest background, her public university education. Her due date 2 weeks after mine was a display, a passing of the torch. I was the current wife, about to be retired. She was the future, carrying the precious heir. I played my part flawlessly. I was gracious, slightly spacey, the distracted, expectant mother. I asked Sophia where she planned to deliver. I recommended my OB-GYN. The hypocrisy was so thick, it had a physical flavor as coffee was served. Victoria made her move. "Liam tells us you're on board with the trust alignment." "Serafina, what a relief. Unity is so important for the children." She slid a glance towards Sophia. "For times, all times, the children—" Sophia flushed. Liam shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, not tonight." "Why not tonight?" Victoria's eyes gleamed. "We are all family here, in one way or another, all invested in the same bright future." She raised her glass. "To the future, to the legacy." They all drank. Champagne, Flodeheld, sparkling cedar. It tasted like ash. On the drive back, Liam was quiet. That was intense. He finally said, "Mom gets carried away. She was just making Sophia feel welcome." "It's nice," I said, staring out the window. "She'll have a good support system for the baby." He reached for my hand. "Sarah, it's not what you think. I'm tired." "Liam, I don't want to think about anything tonight." I let my hand lie dead inside his. The finality of it felt right. Dua bless, tuju bless, The day of the gala. I stood in the dark nursery. The one in the house we actually lived in. The one that would never be used. I placed a hand on my stomach. "This is for you," I whispered. My voice was the only sound in the universe. "So that no one will ever own you. So that no one will ever decide you are too expensive, or the wrong gender, or an inconvenient truth. Mommy is going to break this whole damn system." The green room chaos. The green room was a whirlwind of publicists, makeup artists, and anxious Sterling Capital executives. Liam was being mic'd up while reviewing his note cards. "Victoria?" in a terrifying silver sequin gown. held court. Robert was on his third scotch. Victoria spotted me and swooped in, a sheaf of documents in hand. There you are. Benjamin is here. Let's get this done. Quick. Quick. I followed her into a smaller, soundproofed anteroom. The family lawyer, Benjamin Crawford, a man with dead fish eyes, stood by a small table. The documents were spread out. Signature pages only. Serafina. Victoria trilled. Liam has already signed. It's a standard marital asset harmonization and testamentary guardianship addendum. Basically, it streamlines everything for the benefit of the children. I scanned the first page. Certain phrases jumped out at me. In the event of incapacitation or demise, sole discretion of designated trustee, Liam Sterling. All issued and outstanding shares of Aurora Technologies, Inc. Permanent guardianship of offspring to the Sterling Family Trust. I looked up at Liam, who had followed us in "This transfers my Aurora shares to you and gives the trust permanent control over the children, temporary guardianship." "Baba," he said smoothly, soothingly. "It's a formality. Protects our assets from getting tied up in probate. It's for them." He pointed at my belly. "Benjamin." The dead fish. Nodded. "Standard estate, planning for high net worth families with concentrated assets. Ensures continuity." I took the expensive pen. I could feel Victoria's triumphant glare, Liam's tense expectation. I thought of the remote relay, the tiny brass pin. I smiled, a soft, surrender smile. If it's for the children, I signed Serafina Vance, a flawless forgery of my usual signature. Practiced for hours. One letter was subtly different. In a contested will, a handwriting expert would flag it. It was my own little legal shunt. Victoria beamed, snatching the papers. "Wonderful. Now, let's get you to your seat. The future awaits." She marched out, Crawford trailing behind. Liam lingered for a second, cupping my face. "Thank you. You won't regret this." He kissed me, and I tasted his lie. "Break a leg out there?" I whispered, "Besh kirk besh pimem." The stage. The pre-reception was in full swing in the main hangar. A cacophony of laughter and deal-making. The stage was dark, deserted, clutch in hand. I walked toward it purposefully, as if I'd dropped an earring earlier. A bored security guard nodded at me. "Everything all right?" "Mrs. Sterling just left my reading glasses by the podium," I said with an embarrassed laugh. "Pregnancy brain." He chuckled and let me pass. I knelt at the base of the sleek, modern podium, my heart hammering against my ribs. I reached through the cable access port, feeling the cold. In the metal wall. 1, 2, 3 inches. There, a small brass bolt head. I slipped my fingernail under the edge. A quarter turn counterclockwise. It gave, then popped free into my fingers. A small, lightweight plastic cylinder. I pulled it out and slipped it into my pocket. The remote circuit was disabled. Only the passive fault remained. The choice was made. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and walked back into the glittering crowd. I found my seat in the front row, next to an empty chair reserved for Victoria. I placed the clutch on my lap, my fingers resting on top. The modified key fob was inside, useless now, unless I changed my mind. Alta Sufur Perme. Showtime. The lights dimmed. A hush fell. Dramatic music swelled. Liam walked onto the stage, illuminated by a single spotlight. He looked powerful, confident, born to be there. He gripped the sides of the podium, leaning into the microphone. "Thank you. What an incredible sight." His amplified voice filled the room. "Tonight, we stand on the edge of a new frontier. But innovation is not born of comfort. It is forged in the crucible of hard choices." I watched him, this man, who held my life with such casual disregard, who viewed our daughters as a disappointment, and his mother as a ledger entry. He was sweating under the hot light. A waiter walked past me, and I subtly stuck my foot out. The young man stumbled, and the tray of champagne glasses he was clearing tilted. A cascade of liquid splashed onto the edge of the stage. Just a few feet from the base of the podium, the waiter scrambled, apologizing. The crowd gave a nervous chuckle. Liam didn't notice. True vision demands the courage to cut away what holds us back, to eliminate friction, even when it hurts. The spilled champagne crept forward, a glittering rivulet along a stage seam toward the podium's electrical feed. Moisture. Introduction. Check. My hand tightened on the clutch. The passive fault was in play. The conditions were aligning. It could happen on its own now. A tragic accident. But times wasn't enough. Not for what he had done. Not for what he had planned. He didn't deserve the randomness of chance. He deserved a verdict, an execution. My thumb found the single button on the key fob through the silk of the clutch. Liam raised a hand, gripping the metal frame of the podium tighter for emphasis. The future belongs to the bold, to those who aren't afraid to take it, to reshape it, to do whatever it takes to. I pressed the button. A sound like a massive staple gun echoed through the hangar. A loud, dry times crack. A blinding, blue-white flash erupted from the base of the podium. Liam's body went completely rigid, a grotesque statue silhouetted against the light. A guttural, choked sound escaped through the speakers. Then he collapsed, disappearing behind the podium. For 1 second, there was absolute, stunned silence. Then a woman screamed. Chaos erupted. I stood up, hands flying to my mouth. My face, a perfect mask of horrified disbelief. Liam, I shrieked, the sound tearing at my throat. And in that moment, it wasn't entirely an act. It was the scream for the man he had been, for the life I thought we had, all of it, finally dying in that spectacular, public flash. I took a step toward the stage, then dramatically staggered, allowing Chloe seated nearby, exactly as planned to catch me. "Somebody help him, my husband, I let the clutch drop from my hands. The key fob spilled out onto the floor among the rushing feet, soon to be lost and forgotten. As the crowd panicked and people rushed to the stage, I let my head fall back, staring up at the harsh industrial lights through a veil of very real, very complicated tears. It was done. System failure, complete. User Serafina Vance. Status alive. Silence for a heartbeat. For, after the deafening crack, there was an absolute, vacuum-sealed silence. The kind of silence that exists between lightning and thunder. Then the world erupted. Screams tore through the hangar. A woman's hysterical shriek, "Oh my God," a man's bellow cut the power, the thud of running bodies. Chairs scraping. The stage lights flickered and died, replaced by the harsh, white glare of emergency floods. I let my legs give out. Chloe's arms, right on cue, caught me as I collapsed. Liam, my wail was raw, ragged, ripped from a place that wasn't entirely artifice. It was the death cry of the woman I used to be. "My husband, somebody help him, get a doctor." Now, Robert Sterling's roar cut through the din of panic. He vaulted onto the stage with an agility that belied his age, and the scotch he'd consumed. Victoria, a ghost in silver sequins, was right on his heels. I let myself be half-dragged, half carried by Chloe toward the stage. "I need to see him. Let me through," I thrashed weakly. The perfect picture of pregnant despair, the scene by the podium was surreal, lit by the cold emergency lights and the frantic beams of 100 cell phone flashlights. Liam lay on his back, limbs at odd angles. There was a faint smell of ozone and something metallic in the air. His eyes were open, staring blankly up at the industrial rafters. A young event medic was on her knees beside him, feeling for a pulse at his neck, then his wrist. Her face was grim. She started chest compressions, frantic, pumping motions. What happened? Robert was screaming at a pale, paralyzed stagehand. "What the hell did you people do?" I don't know. Sir. There was a flash at the base. The podium. It was a shock. An electrical shock. A voice from the crowd yelled, "Clear the area. Everyone back, Harris." The Sterling's burly head of security suddenly appeared, shoving people backward. His eyes swept the scene and landed on me, a sobbing wreck in Chloe's arms. "Mrs. Sterling, you need to step back for your safety and the babies." Victoria stood rigid, staring down at her son. Her face was a marble mask, but a small muscle jumped violently in her jaw. "Is he?" The medic sat back on her heels, shaking her head. "I'm not getting anything. No pulse. Not breathing. I'm so sorry." She resumed compressions, but it was a mechanical, hopeless movement. No. The sound that came out of Victoria was inhuman. She lunged forward, but Robert caught her, his own face ashen. He held her as she collapsed. The terrifying matriarch reduced to a broken, heening thing. Paramedics and then police swarmed the venue, Rodius crackling. I was gently but firmly escorted to a folding chair near the wings. A thermal blanket was draped over my shoulders. Chloe stayed close, playing the supportive friend. "Breathe. Sarah, just breathe." A detective approached me, a woman in her late 40s with a tired, sharp face and a badge that read Times Detective Alvarez. "Svalpidi." Her voice was low. "Mrs. Sterling, I am so incredibly sorry. I know this is impossible right now, but I need to ask you a few questions. Can you tell me what you saw?" I looked up at her, my eyes swimming in manufactured tears. He was giving his speech. He was talking about the future, and then there was this terrible sound, like a gunshot, and a bright light, and he fell. I buried my face in my hands, shoulders shaking. I tried to get to him. The baby. I couldn't. "Did you see him touch anything unusual? Did the podium look compromised?" I shook my head, wiping my eyes. "No, it was just his speech. He was holding the sides like he always does. He was sweating. The lights are so hot." I let a fresh wave of sobs take over. Chloe rubbed my back. "Did he have any medical conditions? Heart problems? No. He was perfect. He had a physical last month. He was perfect." The truth. Weaponized. Alvarez nodded, jotting in her notebook. "Okay. Thank you. We'll need a formal statement later. For now, stay with your friend. A paramedic is going to check on you and the babies." "All right, standard protocol." I nodded mutely. As Alvarez walked away to speak with the tech crew, I saw her partner, a younger detective, crouching near the podium with a forensics tech. They were pointing at the dark, Wet stain on the stage floor from the spilled champagne. Liquids and old wiring, the tech said, his voice carrying in the quiet space. Bad combination. Look at this feed. The insulation is cracked, and the ground here is not up to code, not even close. Could a shock from this kill a man? The young detective asked. Under the right conditions, wet surface. Sweaty hands completing the circuit through the metal frame. Absolutely. It's an industrial accident waiting to happen. Across the room was Sophia. She was pressed against a wall, her face chalk white. Both hands clasped protectively over her belly. Her eyes were huge. Fixed on the sheet they were now pulling over Liam's body. Victoria, noticing her gaze, followed it. The look that passed between the two women was pure, undiluted venom. In that instant, any alliance between them shattered. Sophia was no longer the vessel of the air. She was the other woman, a living reminder of scandal. And now, a potential claimant. Robert stormed over to Detective Alvarez. His grief was hardening into rage. This is negligence. Criminal negligence. I want the head of that AV company on a platter. I want everyone responsible in jail. We are investigating. Mr. Sterling, Alvarez said, her voice calm but firm. Accidents like this with live, aging equipment are tragedies. We'll need to impound all the gear, interview the staff. An accident, Robert spat. My son is dead. The initial forensic assessment points to a catastrophic equipment failure. Alvarez replied, her eyes scanning the scene. We'll know more after a full investigation and the coroner's report. A paramedic knelt in front of me, taking my blood pressure, asking about contractions. I answered in monosyllables. My performance now was that of a numb, hollow shell. Inside, a cold clock kept ticking. The pin. Did they find the pin? Maya, disguised in her Veritas jacket, was being questioned near the tech booth. I watched her nod, pointing to schematics on her tablet. Her expression was one of professional concern. Recommended a full circuit overhaul last year. The load calculations were borderline. They opted for a quick patch. Tragits. The narrative was solidifying. A cost-cutting measure. An aging system. A fatal coincidence. The hours bled into each other. Finally, the hangar was cleared. The body removed. The Sterling family was ushered into a fleet of black SUVs. I rode with Victoria and Robert. The silence in the car was a physical weight. Victoria stared out the window. Her face rigoureusement. Robert's phone buzzed non-stop with calls from lawyers, PR teams, board members. He finally snapped at Benjamin Crawford over speakerphone. Yes. To start drafting the release. A tragic accident. A beloved son and visionary taken too soon. Emphasize the family's grief and our commitment to continuing his work. No. No mention of the times, other times, situation. That dies with him. Henlet. He listened, closed his eyes. The will. Yes. The most recent one. Everything to Serafina and the unborn children. It's clean. It's public. We'll deal with the complications privately later. My heart, which had been a block of ice, gave a single, hard thump. The will, the one leaving everything to me, the one predating his plans with Sophia. We arrived at the Atherton estate. The house felt like a mausoleum. In the great room, the confrontation I knew was coming finally erupted. Victoria turned on me, her grief curdling into something uglier. This is your fault. I blinked, feigning stunned confusion. My fault. You were there. You were supposed to be his lucky charm. Instead, you let him walk onto a death trap. Her voice was a shard of glass. Victoria. Enough. Robert growled, but there was no fight left in him. No, not enough. She pointed a trembling finger at me. Now she gets it all. Everything. My son's life's work. His fortune. While that secret of his grows in the belly of an analyst. It's obscene. The will is clear. Victoria, Robert said, sinking into a chair. Suddenly looking every one of his 68 years. Serafina is his legal wife, the mother of his heirs, the public face of this tragedy. We need her. The sympathy, the continuity. It's all tied to her now. Victoria's eyes burned into me. I held her gaze. And for the first time, I didn't look away. I let a fraction of the steel beneath my morning show. Just a flash. My daughters, I said, my voice low, but crystal clear, are Liam's only legitimate heirs. I am their mother. My only concern now is their safety and their future, the future their father wanted for them. I rested a hand on my stomach. I suggest that be everyone's only concern. It was a declaration of war wrapped in the sanctity of motherhood. Victoria heard it. She took a step back as if physically struck. Robert looked between us, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, but too exhausted to grasp its full meaning. The funeral. He muttered. The press. The board meeting. I will handle the public statements, I said quietly. With the PR team. Of course. Aslayam Svidov. It's what he would have expected. I stood up, letting the thermal blanket fall from my shoulders. I need to lie down. The doctor said the stress. I let my voice tremble, playing my ultimate card. The fragile, pregnant widow. I left them in the cold, gilded room, upstairs, in a guest suite. I locked the door. I pulled the burner phone. Flora, from where I had tucked it into my maternity band. A text to the group chat named Times Gardeners. The tree has fallen. Landscaping as predicted. Storm contained. 3 replies came back in rapid succession. Chloe Times narrative solidifying. Tragic accident headlining all major outlets. My investigative piece on tech event safety standards is prepped for later. Eliana, digital, locks engaged. All gardening tools wiped remotely. No trace. Maya Times, preliminary forensic sweep, faulty ground plus liquid intrusion. No anomalies detected. The special fertilizer has dissolved. I sank onto the bed. The adrenaline crash left me shaking. It was done. Liam was gone. The immediate threat was neutralized. But the war was far from over. Victoria's hatred was now a clear and present danger. Sophia and her unborn son were a legal and PR time bomb, and I was the grieving widow center stage in a play just entering its second act. A day later, Detective Alvarez came to the Atherton house for a follow-up. Her demeanor was respectful, but she retained that watchful edge. Mrs. Sterling, we've completed our initial technical investigation. The official cause appears to be accidental electrocution due to a ground fault in the podium's electrical system. Compounded by moisture on the stage, the wiring was substandard and hadn't been properly maintained. Stagecraft, the AV company, is facing multiple violations and a massive lawsuit. I nodded, twisting a tissue in my hands. So it was nobody's fault, and everybody's fault. Just a terrible accident. In a way, the DA is unlikely to press criminal charges without proof of willful negligence. It's a civil matter now. She paused. There is one thing. A member of the cleanup crew found this near the stage. She held up a small, clear evidence bag. Inside was the charm from my Judith Leiber clutch, the modified key fob, now scratched and dirty. Is it yours? It's distinctive. My blood froze. I forced a frown of confusion, then a flash of recognition. Oh, that's just a silly keychain. Ah, gift. It must have fallen off my clutch in the panic. Is it important? She studied it, then studied me. No, probably not. We had it checked out. It's just a battery and a simple transmitter. Like a garage door opener. Probably unrelated. She placed the bag on the coffee table. You can keep it. Just junk. Actually. Thank you, I whispered as she stood to leave. She turned back. Mrs. Sterling, for what it's worth, the coroner found something. A pre-existing heart condition. Very mild. A murmur he probably didn't know about. In a high-stress situation, even a minor shock could be the trigger. It adds to the perfect storm nature of this. I'm sorry. When she left, I picked up the evidence bag. The conscience pin was in my jewelry box. The detonator fob was right here. Dismissed as junk. Both had been weighed. Both had been deemed insufficient or perfect. I looked out the window at the manicured, sun-drenched lawn. The system had worked. The flaw had been identified, exploited, and the outcome deemed accidental. I was the widow, the victim, the sole heir. The next move was mine. 1 month later, the settlement. Benjamin Crawford's conference room smelled of old money, lemon polish, and restrained rage. I sat on one side of the polished mahogany table. My posture was relaxed, one hand resting on the arm of my chair, the other on the handle of a sleek, black, double stroller. Inside, swaddled in cashmere blankets, slept Isabella and Genevieve, my daughters, my anchors. My ultimate victory. On the other side of the table, the forces of the Sterling dynasty were arrayed, but the formation was broken. Robert, aged a decade and a year, sat with Crawford. Victoria, a statue carved out of bitter chalk, refused to look at me, staring instead at a hideous landscape painting. And at the far end, looking terrified, sat Sophia Reed with her own lawyer, her infant son, Liam Robert Sterling, fussing in a carrier on her chest. My lawyer, Nina Rodriguez, was a revelation, a shark in a Valentino suit. She came highly recommended by Elena. She had taken one look at the harmonization papers I'd signed under duress and laughed. A first-year associate could tear this apart. The undue influence is palpable. The forged signature is just the cherry on top. She had also seen the Fury's encrypted files. Not all of them, but enough. Dr. Evans's letter, the signed refusal of treatment, the trust documents, the proof of the affair, and the male heir clause. This isn't just leverage. Serafina, Nina had said, her eyes hard. It's a tactical nuke. The question is whether we just destroy them, or use it to build something. Today was the answer. Benjamin Crawford cleared his throat. We are here to finalize the disposition of the late Liam Sterling's estate and resolve all ancillary matters. The will is clear. The bulk of personal and liquid assets pass to Serafina Vance Sterling. The Sterling Trust, however, governs the majority of the venture holdings and real estate portfolio. The trust's stipulations regarding lineal descent are complex. They are simple, I said, my calm voice cutting through the legalese. My daughters are Liam's legitimate children. They are the primary beneficiaries. The existence of an extramarital child. I didn't look at Sophia, who flinched. does not negate their inheritance under California law, nor under the terms of the trust, which specifies times descent, not foi, mal foi descent. The gender clause only triggers the early release of a separate discretionary fund. I paused. A fund which, I might add, appears to have motivated criminally negligent behavior. The room went dead still. Victoria's head snapped toward me. How dare you? I dare, I said, holding her gaze. Because I have the Genside medical records. I have the letter from Dr. Alden Evans detailing a life-saving treatment for me and the twins that Liam rejected. I have the notarized declination document citing financial infeasibility while he was worth over $400 million. I let that hang in the air. A DA might look at that as depraved indifference. A family court judge would certainly find it relevant to the character of a beneficiary's father, and the suitability of those who might have encouraged such a decision. Robert's face was grey. That is a monstrous accusation. It is a monstrous fact. Nina chimed in smoothly. We have no desire to air this publicly. My client wishes to protect her daughter's legacy and their peace. But she will not be bullied out of what is rightfully hers. And theirs. What do you want? Robert asked. The fight utterly gone from his voice. First, the harmonization papers are null and void. Tear them up. Second, my daughters and I receive our full 50% of the community property uncontested. The Palo Alto house, the Tahoe property, the liquid assets, clean and fast, and the trust holdings Benjamin Crawford asked. His voice strained. My daughters remain beneficiaries. I will act as fiduciary for their shares until they reach the age of majority. In exchange, I will not contest the disbursement of the male heir fund to Liam Robert Sterling. I finally looked at Sophia. A lump sum, enough to be secure, not enough to be a threat. In return, you sign a comprehensive NDA regarding your relationship with Liam, and you waive any future claims against the estate or the trust. You move on. Sophia looked at her lawyer, then at me, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and desperate hope. This was more than she had ever dreamed of getting. Yes, she whispered. Agreed. Victoria made a sound of pure disgust. As for you two, I said, turning my gaze back to Robert and Victoria. The interference. The commentary. The backroom maneuvering is over. You are grandparents. You will be allowed to see the girls on supervised, prearranged visits, but you have no voice. No control. The narrative is now mine. The tragic, inspiring widow, building a future from loss. If you breathe a word against me, or try to use the press, I release the medical file. The Sterling legacy becomes synonymous with monstrousness, not innovation. Do you understand? The silence was absolute. I had them. They were bullies. And I had just brandished a bigger, sharper weapon. You are cold. Victoria hissed. I smiled. It was my first real smile in that room. I learned from the best. 6 months later, the launch. The headquarters of the Phoenix Covenant Fund was a renovated warehouse in the Mission District of San Francisco. It was all light, to open space, living green walls, and the palpable hum of focused energy. On the wall behind the reception desk was a single line of elegant text. Times, we fund the unthinkable. We build the unforgettable. At the podium, I adjusted the microphone. I was leaner, stronger, my eyes clearer. I wore a simple, powerful black suit. In the front row, Chloe, Elena, and Maya sat together, their faces reflecting a fierce pride. The room was packed with journalists, investors, and dozens of female entrepreneurs. A year ago, I started, my voice projecting clearly without needing to be forced. I stood in another room, playing a supporting role in someone else's story. Today, I'm here to tell you that the most transformative technology isn't always code. Sometimes, it's capital. And for too long, capital has flowed down narrow channels, funding predictable ideas and perpetuating silent crises. I clicked the remote. A slide appeared, a stark statistic. Less than 2% of VC funding goes to women-led health tech startups. We ignore the health and safety of half the population and call it a market decision. We view female founders with solutions to female problems as niche. I am here to tell you that isn't just bad ethics. It's catastrophic business. The women's health market isn't a niche. It is the Times market. Another click. The Phoenix Covenant logo, stylized bird rising from a circuit board, filled the screen. This fund is a pact, a promise. We are committing $150 million in capital, secured from the restructuring of my late husband's estate, exclusively to early-stage, women-led startups solving critical problems in female health, safety, and financial autonomy. Our first investment. I nodded toward a woman in the front row, Dr. Onu Sharma, a brilliant geneticist, stepped onto the stage. My company, Ursarept Therapeutics, is developing a scalable, affordable platform for targeted gene regulation therapy, she said, her voice shaking slightly with passion. Our first application will be treating prenatal conditions previously considered prohibitively expensive to cure. We believe no mother's life should have a price tag. The applause was thunderous. I caught Chloe's eye. Her series, The Gilded Trap, had won a Pulitzer Prize. The resulting conversation had sparked hearings in Sacramento. The Sterling family, to avoid further scrutiny, had quietly backed some of the proposed regulatory reforms. Their name was now associated with change, a narrative I carefully control. After the speeches, as the crowd mingled over sparkling water and kale chips, the Furies regrouped in my office. You were magnificent, Chloe said, clinking her glass against mine. The Times Wall Street Journal Times piece is already up. From tragedy to transformation, security audit on the fund's infrastructure is clean. Elena reported, all data compartmentalized, triple key access. Even I'd have a hard time breaking in. My agreement. I vetted the first 3 hardware projects. One is a non-invasive home monitor for postpartum hemorrhage. Brilliantly simple. The kind of thing that gets overlooked because the people who suffer from it don't have a seat at the VC table. I looked at them. My sisters in arms. We did it. We actually did it. No, Chloe corrected gently, putting an arm around my shoulders. You did it. We just gave you the tools. Later that week, Palo Alto. The afternoon sun poured into the bright, airy kitchen of our house. My Times house, the one we kept. Isabella was cooing in a bouncer, batting at a plush satellite toy. Genevieve was sleeping in a carrier on my chest. The doorbell rang. It was a courier with a thick, stiff legal envelope. My heart rate barely hitched anymore. Inside were the quarterly trust distributions. The numbers were obscene. The blood money now flowed into Phoenix Covenant, into university endowments, into a life of absolute, unassailable security. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Vermont. Saw the launch. Incredible work. The girls are beautiful. Alex. The child psychology professor I'd met at the park, the one with kind eyes and an easy laugh, who had asked about the twins. Not the headlines, who had given me his number and said, "If you ever want to talk about something other than sleep schedules or venture capital," and who hadn't been offended when I just smiled and walked away, until, months later, I texted him just to talk. I replied times, "Thank you," still trying to figure it all out. His response was immediate. "Aren't we all? Coffee is still on the table. No expiration date." I put the phone down. A small, unfamiliar warmth settled in my chest. Not a plan, a possibility. That night, I settled on the couch with a sleeping twin on each side. The silence was peaceful, not empty. On the coffee table was the day's mail. Between bills and catalogues was a stiff cream envelope. The return address was the Sterling estate in Atherton. I opened it. It wasn't a lawyer's letter, but a note in Victoria's precise, venomous handwriting. "You took everything. You wear your victory like a cheap suit. But blood, speak. They are Sterling's. You are just the vessel. That truth will find them, and you too." I read it twice. Then, calmly, I walked over to the sleek gas fireplace, turned it on, and held the edge of the paper to the flame. It blackened, curled, and vanished into ash. She was wrong. They weren't Sterling's. They were Vance's, Isabella and Genevieve Vance. Their truth would be one of creation, not legacy, of choice, not control. I walked over to the large picture window overlooking the garden that Chloe, Elena, and Maya had helped me plant. It was wild, full of native grasses and resilient flowers, not the manicured roses Victoria preferred. It thrived on its own terms. My phone buzzed again. A notification from the encrypted server I shared with the Furies. Elena, motion sensor, alert at the San Jose apartment. Sophia Reed is packing up. Looks like a permanent move. East Coast. Maya. Good. The gift basket with baby supplies and relocation agent. She'll be fine. Chloe. And the world is a slightly less complicated place. Dinner next week, my treat. The girls can terrorize the waitstaff. I smiled, typing a reply to the group. Dinner? Yes. I looked down at my daughters. Their perfect faces, softened by sleep. The war was over. Peace was mine to define. It wasn't the life I had planned. It was harder, sharper, and infinitely more real. It was built on a foundation of terrible secrets and necessary fires. But from those ashes, we were rising, not just surviving, thriving. I was no longer Serafina, the victim, nor Serafina, the avenger. I was Serafina Vance, founding mother, Phoenix,